been a long day. I hope you're all feeling good, feeling energetic, and still feeling engaged. Artificial intelligence and robotics have been the theme of this afternoon. We're going to wrap up by going from technology back to humanity. And what I'm going to talk about is leadership, effective leadership, engaging leadership, the attributes of great leaders, and how those attributes have had to change in recent years. Particularly how, as leaders, we have had to pivot from being on a default setting of acting to reacting. We have great plans. We have roadmaps. We're going to talk about those. And then life gets in the way. What we see happen is that what was once clear becomes cloudy. We have to change direction, pivot in the moment, and call on some of the skills that have emerged as being absolutely crucial for leaders in hospitality. Now, I use the word hospitality as a catch-all for this presentation. I come from the hotel and resort business, but I think we are all in hospitality. So, who am I? Well, my name is Bill Walshe. My first job in hospitality was at the age of 14 in Limerick in Ireland, where twice a week I would get on my bicycle, I would cycle 4 miles, and I would take out the trash in a local hotel. Cycle back home, following day, go back, take the empty trash cans back into the trash room. I've had a career over 40 years that has quite literally spanned the trash room to the boardroom. There were very frequent occasions when it was almost impossible to tell those two places apart. Started in the former, and who knows, I may very well be heading back there. I worked in Europe, I spent a decade in Dubai, and I spent the last 12 years in Los Angeles as the chief executive officer of the modern luxury, international, and multi-award-winning Viceroy Hotel Group. And at Viceroy, I achieved something I had always wanted. I became the guy. I was the one in that company. Undoubtedly, undisputably, I was the guy with the dumbest job title of anybody in the organization. I'd achieved what I always wanted, 3 words, chief executive officer. They'd been the holy grail of my career. And when I got there, I realized just how much my title sucked. When I compared myself to folks that I worked with in the organization, they had titles that were action-focused, that had purpose inherent in them. I was working with restaurant managers. What do? A restaurant manager manages a restaurant. I was working with cocktail servers. What do cocktail servers do? They serve cocktails. And here was I, the chief executive officer. So presumably, I executive officered in a chiefly manner. High on status, low on purpose. So I decided to rebrand myself. And I would rebrand myself to reflect not the status of the position that I always wanted to be, but the purpose of the position that I always needed to be. And that was weaponizing purpose in order to create pride. I moved from being the chief executive officer to the chief pride officer of the company in recognition that as leaders, what we do is we create and we curate environments that make people proud. The essence of hospitality is very, very simple. We're a group of human beings who enjoy making other human beings happy. That's it. I've tried for decades to come up with an explanation that was a lot more rocket science-y, but I can't. Because at our core, the fundamental opportunity, the fundamental obligation that we have to be human beings who make other human beings happy is in itself arguably the most profound thing we can be. And is an extraordinary opportunity that I think changes the world. And there are many ways that human beings make other human beings happy, and one of those ways is by making people feel proud. Pride is my favorite word in the English vocabulary. Pride is something that fuels excellence. Proud people are committed to excellence. Proud people have an allergy to mediocrity. Proud people don't just want to make others feel proud, they want to make themselves feel proud by making others feel proud. So let's talk about proud leadership, achieving excellence, and having an adversity to mediocrity. And in order to do so, we're going to go to profanity. It's late, we're about to start drinking. We can get there, trust me. So what I'd like you to do is to focus on this word. Keep your eyes open, close them if you wish, and I want you to visualize it. And I want you to visualize how awful, how disgusting, how profane, and sadly how accepted this diabolical word has become in our vocabulary as leaders. And then I want you to realize that I'm not talking about the word you're talking about. Mine is worse. It is the word fine. Fine for me is the very expression of mediocrity in everything that leaders do. I ran one of the most luxurious hotel companies in the world. I would have guests coming to stay in a resort for Christmas and New Year, 10-night minimum stay, $1,500 to $2,000 a night. Mandatory New Year's Eve dinner, that's another $1,000 on the bill. And at the end of their stay, they could come to check out. And there would be somebody, one day maybe a robot fueled by AI, who knows, sitting behind the desk. And they would go, checking out? Yes, I am. How was your stay? It was fine. Okay. Really? It was fine? Accepting the word fine as a result is accepting failure. I think as leaders, we need to set our bar so much higher than fine, not only in business interactions, but in human interactions as well. Let's break free of the muscle memory that constrains us into mediocrity. The next time you're at your place of work and you see one of your colleagues walking towards you, do not fall into the muscle memory interaction trap. What's your name? Okay, so we're walking towards each other, and I say, hey, Valerie. And you say, hey, Bill. And I say, how are you? And you say, I'm fine. And I go, okay. And we continue on, and nothing has changed. Nobody's life has been bettered. Neither of us will remember that conversation because we have 15,000 conversations like that every single month. Hi, how are you? I'm fine. Okay. So, I would like you to take this challenge. I rebranded myself from being the Chief Executive Officer of Viceroy to being the Chief Pride Officer of Viceroy because my title sucked. I would like you to accept that your title sucks too. I don't even know what it is, and I know that it sucks. And I would like you to accept being rebranded in whatever you do to being a Chief Pride Officer. Your obligation as a human being is to make other human beings happy. Your obligation is to make people proud. So, weaponize the word. And the next time you're walking past Valerie and you say, hey, Valerie, how are you? And she goes, hi, Bill, how are you? Instead of saying, how are you? Insert a word. What word do you think it might be? Proud. Hey, Valerie, how proud are you? Now, what will happen is your colleague will look at you like you've lost your mind. But what will ensue is a conversation. It will start out from a place of discomfort, and it will get to a place of revelation. Hi, Valerie. How proud are you? What are you talking about, Bill? I'm just wondering, is the way we're doing what we do in this company giving you the opportunity to feel as proud as you can be? Or is there anything that I can do to create prouder circumstances so that you can soar? That's where great conversations begin. That's where great ideas come from. And that's where great relationships get solidified. So, fine is failure. Let's find some other F words that we love. Now, I did this with an audience recently. It was a golf management company, and there are quite a few young folks in the room. And I said, come on, we can come up with some better F words than fine for what you do. Give me one. And the first two were always easy. People go, fantastic. And I went, yes. And then they went, fabulous. And I went, yes. And then there's always a pause to the third one. And eventually someone goes, fun? And I go, yes. And we never get beyond that. And as I was about to wrap up, I heard this Gen Z voice at the back of the room go, phenomenal! They're a phonic generation, according to my kids. Mind you, my kids might not know how to spell any words except Venmo, Dad. So, in order to get to this place of pride, in order to get to this place of excellence, what do we need? We need a roadmap. Now, typically in business, as leaders, we're very good at certain type of roadmaps, and we underwhelm. at the important ones. So the ones we're very good at usually are financial and commercial roadmaps. I'm sure many people in this room in the next couple of months will start to put an immense amount of time, disproportionately high, into the preparation of your 2025 budget. You might spend 2, 3, 4 months putting the budget together. It'll be based on a set of assumptions. You will take that budget to the board. You will make a presentation. Eventually, after a bit of pushback, the budget will get approved. And then at the end of the first quarter, when you realize that 85% of the assumptions that you made were completely wrong, or because life got in the way, you pivot into the next roadmap, which is a forecast. I would ask you, ladies and gentlemen, as leaders of businesses that make human beings happy, to weigh in your own mind the amount of time and effort that you focus on your commercial and financial roadmaps versus your cultural and ideological roadmaps. How's your 2025 human beings budget going to go? And I don't mean the cost of them, I mean the investment in them. And I'm going to guess, based on my experience at the hospitality industry, it's about a 85-15 weighting. 85% of our time and effort goes into financial and commercial roadmaps, and maybe 15, if we're lucky, goes into cultural and ideological. That has to change. I believe the way to change that road mapping is to have an ideology, an activated, articulated ideology that becomes part of the vocabulary of your company, and it is evident in the behaviors of you as leaders in everything that you do. I felt this way for a long time. Didn't really know what to do with it. I had this idea of the necessity and the importance of ideology and this love for the idea of pride. And I thought, I've got pride and I've got an ideology. What should I do? And then I remembered where I live. And I live in Los Angeles. And what we do in Los Angeles, when you have two words you don't know what to do with, you shove them together and make up a new word. Hence, Brangelina. Benefer, Prideology. It's the concept of leaders focusing on having a platform in an organization that looks to the cultural strength, and that being a primary route to becoming a more effective, more enjoyable, more engaged, and yes, ultimately, more profitable organization. This is an example of an ideology. This is an ideology that I developed excuse me, for hospitality. It's a series of challenge statements, it's a series of commitment statements, and it's activated throughout every organization that I have been connected with. Now, for those of you that are in the room saying, ooh, how bright are the lights in his face? If I put my phone up and steal the ideology, will he notice? Yes, he will, but he doesn't care, and has actually made it quite easy for you. So if you want to grab from the QR code, again, I'm not saying that every element of the ideology that I'm using as an example today will work for you or for your business, but it is an example to perhaps be inspired by. So let's go back to it. Now, as the CEO of Viceroy, when I would do orientation for new colleagues joining the company, which was my favorite, absolute favorite thing to do, I would put this slide up, not the other ones we've gone through, just this, and we would do about 90 minutes in conversation, activating and interrogating every line of ideology. What does it mean to be a host, first and always? How do you demonstrate thoughtfulness in the detail of what do you do? How do you create sensation and inspiration? How do we create wealth? Not financial wealth, but one of the things that my customers in hospitality and the folks that you care for as human beings making other human beings happy have in common is that the most perishable currency that they have, it's not money, it's not property, it's not art or jewelry, it's time. So how do we ideologically calibrate our businesses to respect the fact that they have chosen us to invest their most precious currency? And how do we repay that through respectful, proud interactions? It's about being courageous, being unabashed provocateurs. Now, what I mean by being an unabashed provocateur, I think you've all probably heard the phrase in recent years, positive disruption. It became such a cliche. Well, without purpose, I don't see the point of disruption. Disruption without purpose is actually interruption. But when you have purpose and you positively disrupt, you become provocative, and be an unabashed provocateur. Have the courage to change things and not to simply do things the way they've always done. Be victorious. Win, for God's sake. It's okay to want to win. Do it ethically, do it appropriately, but create teams of winners. Hire people with infectious winning energy. Give them the tools. Allow them to go out and beat the competition. Be valued and be proud. Again, I can do 90 minutes on this in conversation with folks in an organization. I would ask you to say, if you stand in front of the colleagues in the organization that you lead, can you have a 90-minute conversation about the values, about the mission, about the intention, and about the purpose of your organization? And if you can't, it's not a criticism. If you can't, change it. Adjust the weighting. Spend a couple of hours less putting next year's financial budget together and invest those hours into creating an ideological articulation of why you do what you do and not just how you do what you do. So, if it's a roadmap, what's your job? Well, on this particular journey, as the Chief Pride Officer of whatever it is that you do, I'm now also designating you a human GPS. Because as leaders, we are the satellite navigation processes of the organizations that we run. And your job is to navigate the journey, not only commercially, but also ideologically, and to deal with whatever unexpected obstacles may be put in your path. Look, I think that the creation of automotive GPS, of satellite navigation, is probably the greatest technology invention of my lifetime. I was not good with maps. It would get heated in the car. And now, none of that happens. Those of you in the room that are too young to have experienced that, I dare you, turn it off one day, buy a paper map, and try and get somewhere. Then you'll know how we used to live. What do you mean it's been upside down for the last 4 hours? What does a GPS do? A GPS actually gives confidence to the driver, because when you put the destination that you are going to into the GPS, usually you've got a pretty good idea of how to get there. Destination set, route plotted. And it operates in the background. You refer to it for confidence and for validation every now and then. But where it really comes into its own is if you get to a crossing and the GPS says, go straight, and a tree has fallen down, so you cannot go straight, and you must turn right, the GPS doesn't say, why did you turn right, you idiot? The GPS will simply use one most important word: rerouting. You, ladies and gentlemen, are the GPSs of your organization, because the assumptions on which we build our business models are assumptions that are valid only at the moment they are made, and life will get in the way, and things will change, and the path that you thought you had plotted commercially, culturally, ideologically, will suddenly not be available to you. And your job in that moment is to make sure that you do not lose sight of the destination. You reroute. You get to the place you need to go to by figuring out a different way of getting there. And when those obstacles appear, everybody in the organization looks at you. And you have to be ready to make that decision, to change that course, to reroute, and to plot new direction. You're a Chief Pride Officer, you're a GPS. I ain't finished with you yet. You're going to be a whole lot more stuff by the time that I'm done. So why do we need to worry about changes and pivoting in the moment and rerouting and plotting new directions? Guys, look at the few years that we've just come through. Look at the effect, the behavioral effect on the customers that we have as a result of some of the extraordinary circumstances that we as leaders have had to and continue to deal with that nobody in our generation had to deal with before. A global pandemic, profound social change, a polarized political environment where people don't just disagree anymore, they disagree vehemently, venomously, violently, which has created circumstances that are affecting the customers that we have and the way we must interact with them. Did any of these lines change for me as a result of pandemic, as a result of social reform, as a result of what's going on politically? No. But the interpretation of them did. And the route to them very much changed. Very quick example, we create sensation. One of the things that I've always loved to do in luxury hospitality is to do great partnerships. Pre-pandemic, I do some really cool partnerships with people like LVMH, Louis Vuitton, with car companies like Maserati and Rolls-Royce, with perfumes, with whomever it may be. And it was fun and it was cool. And then the pandemic came. My favorite partnership that I did through pandemic was with a company called Molecule. Molecule are this amazing, cool company, and they make air filters. And I wanted my guests, who were terrified to have to travel during pandemic, to realize and to see evidence that I was going to interpret being thoughtful in the detail in a way that was relevant to the times that we were living in. Oh, if I go to a hotel, I might die. Yeah, but we got a Maserati. That didn't work. Oh, if I go to a hotel, I might die. Wait, is that a Molecule? That's the most advanced air filter in the world. You've got them in the lobby, the restaurant, the bar, and one in my suite. So you're filtering air in real time in a way that you're actually trying to keep me alive. Yes, I am, because I give a damn. Same ideology, completely different interpretation. So be affected by the circumstances in which you're living and make sure that your actions are relevant. All right, somebody pick one. I don't have a script for, oh, it's probably obvious, anything that I do, but sometimes lines jump out at me that I get excited by, and sometimes it happens in the audience. Sir. Be an unabashed provocateur. Okay, I remember once delivering the ideology talk to a group of colleagues in Abu Dhabi. About 80% of the workforce in Abu Dhabi come from the Indian subcontinent. There were 400 people in the room, and just before I went out, the director of HR said to me, "Hey, Bill, I've heard you talk." I was like, "Oh." And he said, "You're going to need to slow down and maybe use littler words." He said littler, use Spanish. And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because not many people in this audience are going to have English as a first language." And I've looked through what we're going to talk about, and one in particular jumps out at me. He said, "Unabashed provocateur." He said, "I'm Spanish, I speak English as a second. I have no idea what that means." So we went on Google, and we said, alternative to unabashed provocateur. Do you know what came up? Shameless troublemakers. And I thought, yes, maybe we should change it. And it's about being disruptive in the business. It's about having the courage as a leader to celebrate the intention of an action every bit as vigorously as you celebrate the outcome of an action. What I mean by that is great intention doesn't always deliver great results because life gets in the way. And somebody might say, "I've had an amazing idea. Let's do this." And you go, "Yes." And then it doesn't work and you go, "No." The next time somebody comes to you with an amazing idea that doesn't work through no fault of their own, promote them. And create a culture of unabashed provocateurs in your organization by saying it is those people who will stand up and make suggestions and create the opportunity for change. Those are the people, irrespective of outcome. Actually, thinking about it now, if there's nothing else you take away from this talk, and in about an hour and a half on the other side of this wall, that wouldn't surprise me. Just remember this. I will celebrate the intention of my team every bit as vigorously as I will celebrate the execution and outcomes of my team. Life-changing. I hope that answered your question. So as we head into 2024, what are some of the things that I think as leaders we need to be conscious of in this human beings looking after human beings, luxury, hospitality, service kind of space? What is an important new word? Look, for at least the last decade, all of us who do what we do for a living have hung on to two words, individuality and authenticity. They have peppered every conversation, and they've been very important, and they are very important words. I think there's a third word that needs to be given the same level of importance, if not more so right now, as a result of all of the things that we talked about that have happened in recent years. And that word, ladies and gentlemen, is sanctuary. I think that for anybody involved in delivering experiences to other human beings, in creating homes, whether they're temporary in a hotel or longer lasting in senior living, I think the obligation on us to satisfy the expectation of our guests and customers, which is not anymore serve to me. Their expectation and desire is care for me. And I think creating that sense of sanctuary for people who live in urban areas. I gave a talk in Bend in Oregon about 10 days ago to a golf group. And I don't know if you've ever been to Bend in Oregon, but it's like beautiful. And it's very tranquil. And it freaked me out because there were no helicopters. I live in Los Angeles. There's an LAPD helicopter literally 500 feet over my house, 8 hours a day. The silence was terrifying. But I wake up every morning to the sound of helicopters. I wake up wondering if my car will be outside. I wake up grateful that nobody tried to break into my house over the night. I wake up wondering if some tragically abandoned homeless folks on the street are going to try and do harm to my kids when they're out walking. These are the lives we're all living. I then turn on the news. What news? Because there is no more news. There's that news and this news. And they shout at each other all day long. And what happened to the news? It's like them and us. And we're all living in this, and that's why we've got this desire for sanctuary. So, for your businesses, include that in the way you describe businesses, in the way you talk about the attributes, in the way you activate through the use of language, through photography, through video, whatever it is you use to promote. Don't just go for, ooh, excellence, ooh, gold leaf. And for us in hotels, thread count and chandelier. No, let's try to figure out how do we communicate compassion, because that's what people are seeking today. If you get a chance, read this book, Danny Meyer, Setting the Table. Danny, founder of Shake Shack and Union Square Hospitality Group. He once said something that profoundly changed my career. He said, service is evident when something happens to you. It's hospitality if that act happens for you. One word, and utterly profound. So let's make sure that as leaders, we're calibrating our businesses, that we're ideologically calibrated to say to our guests, to say to our customers, we're not just going to do things to you transactionally, but it's going to be evident that what we're doing in that interaction is because we care. We love you, we give a damn, so we do stuff for you, not to you. Are you CCGGDB? As leaders, I think you need to ask yourself this very obvious question that I don't need to explain at all. Are you CC, charging confidently? Yes, you should. If the opportunity is there, if there's demand for your product and your service, don't be afraid to charge confidently for it. But if you're going to CC, charge confidently, then GG, give generously. Compassion, generosity. Bizarrely, two of the least used words if you look at the way the top 100 luxury brands in the world describe themselves. But if you took 100 customers of the top 100 luxury brands in the world and said, what are you looking for? They would be two of the top words that they use. I want to be cared for. I want to be considered. I want to be appreciated. I want to be valued. I want random acts of kindness. I don't want to feel gouged anymore. So, CC, charge confidently. GG, give generously. DB, deliver brilliantly, because there's no room for second chances in what we do. A couple of other questions, and I'm about to wrap up, don't worry. We've all have continuing difficulties finding, attracting, recruiting, and then retaining staff in our businesses, colleagues, associates, whatever you call them, particularly post-pandemic. And as leaders, we've all been ringing, oh, where do they go? Which is completely the wrong question. A generation of people left the service, hospitality, and the care industry during pandemic, and we blame them. We say, where do they go? That's not the question. Why did they go? That's not even the question. This is the question. Why didn't they come back? Why did a generation of people that worked in our businesses say to us when we said, ooh, we're reopening, come on back? And they went, you know what? I'm actually happier packing boxes for Amazon in a warehouse in Boise than working in your luxury facility. And we go, oh, they're so entitled. Maybe it's us. Maybe it's because there isn't a sufficiently evident and activated ideology in our business that these young folks can connect to, because they actually care why the companies they work for do something and not just how. Are you socially conscious? Self-evident. DEI, still a thing, will be a thing, should always be a thing. A race for improvement. Culturally, this is a race that doesn't have a finishing line. You're never going to get there, nor should you. Because whenever we achieve something amazing in becoming more inclusive and more engaging as an organization, then we should set ourselves yet another goal. Never have a finishing line. And finally, the most important question that I think you need to consider for every stakeholder in your organization, for yourselves, for your customers, and for your colleagues. Move away from the word satisfaction. Satisfaction is dead. Right? Don't do a colleague satisfaction survey, employee satisfaction survey, guest satisfaction survey. Do a belonging survey. Ask people if they feel that they connect. Not are you happy, because they're going to go, yeah. It's like saying, oh, how are you? I'm fine. That's what an employee satisfaction survey is. But when you test belonging, you say, can you see, can you feel, can you connect to the integrity and the intention of this organization? And when your colleagues and your customers answer that yes, that's where the magic happens, because they'll never leave. So, not are you happy? Do you feel like you belong? I hope I was slightly better than a mediocre bottle of red wine. So we're about to find out. Thank you for being so engaged. The energy has been incredible. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Bill.